I know nothing that will get Matt more excited than covering our first ska album of the show, baby. Madness One Step Beyond, excuse me. Go ahead and run the numbers, Matt. And actually, you get the first take.
I do.
I must admit, I'm looking forward to this one.
I'm sure you are.
I am intrigued.
Yeah, so Madness One Step Beyond comes in at number 448 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums, number 44 in 1979, number 2,268 of all time, is the highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, and it did not make Rolling Stone's list. So my first question is this two-tone ska?
This was the first song was released on two-tone, and they were in the two-tone movement, Matt.
So is that like Motown? It's like, it's not really a genre, but it's like the record label or something.
It was a record label, and yeah, Madness was a direct peer of the Specials. This came out 4 months after that. Their first single was released on two-tone. It was in a bidding war, and then they actually signed with a different record label. But yeah, this would be considered. They went in a different direction after a while, because you'll know like Our House and stuff. But this would be considered two-tone. This album.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if this is what two-tone's like, I'm not sure I'm a big fan of two-tone either. I struggled. I mean, there's elements here that I think I get why people like this. It's certainly upbeat and it's energetic, right? There's lots of horns, and it gets you going, right? And I've seen ska shows before. I've seen people kind of really just get into this, and it's never really done much for me. And as I listened to this, and again, I'd listened to this a couple of times, I think one of the reasons I struggle with this is it sounds a bit gimmicky. It sounds a bit cartoonish, right? And just it's over the top, and it's just it's kind of like this the sound that's kind of like gimmicky is like the best way I can describe it. It just is like it's just trying to be a bunch of goofballs, and
the nutty sound is what Madness called their sound. They actually had a sonic name for their sound.
Yeah. Okay. Sound, all right. Yeah, and it's just got this goofy nature to it that I just it doesn't really do much for me. That's all I can say. There's a couple of moments on here, like the second track, My Girl. It's got a cool, interesting piano part, and there's some songs in here that don't sound as much ska, and those are probably the ones that I like the most. I do like the name Tarzan's Nuts. That made me laugh out loud. That's the name of that's one of the instrumentals that they had. Guys, I tried with this. I really don't have too much of a take because it's one of those things that as I listened to it and I tried, I'm like, I'm not feeling it, and that's just kind of the overall sense that I get. It becomes forgettable for me. It just becomes something that is just I just throw my hands up and I'm like, it's just not for me, right? But I guess I get why I like it, why other people like it. If they tone down the horns and kind of
tone down the horns,
it wouldn't be ska.
Yeah, I know.
That's right. Like telling Genesis in the Peter Gabriel to write shorter songs.
Exactly. So. Right. So there's you guys probably said if this song was a little shorter. Yeah, if this had fewer horns, I would probably like that more. But yeah, it's just that's the thing. It's gimmicky. It's cartoonish. It's kind of like. Do 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 do. You know what I mean? Like I'm just
Benny Hill's music
in the background of like some kind of like the rabbit chase.
There's a sense of humor that's shared though in the lyrical content, and so I get what you're saying. While I may disagree with you strongly on that, I get what you're saying though, because there is a very Englishness of it.
Yeah, and I think that these guys seem like they're having fun. You know what I mean? And it's like the energy is certainly there, but musically, like I don't need to listen or really care to listen to this too much. So I'm thumbs down, but I am very biased. I will admit that, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that are like, "What is apoplectic? What are you talking about?" But it's just. I don't know. I'll be open-minded. I know we're going to cover other stuff as well, so I can try to be, continue to be open-minded and find bits and pieces of songs that I like. Like here, I thought My Girl was okay, but yeah, it's for the most part. And it's one of those things too that like 5 songs in, it's like I've kind of made up my mind, and then like I can't like the last half is like I'm not paying attention as much because I'm just like, all right, is this album over yet? Can I listen to something else? So that's kind of where I am. So sorry guys, I tried.
Well, I think ska is such a polarizing genre. I think it gets lumped in almost with like like zoot suits and like and that kind of that fad that there was of the swing revival movement. And so I think for people
American, it does.
Yes,
I'd like to point out that ska has way more credibility everywhere else in the world. So that is a big distinction I'd like to point out. So
yeah. I mean, ska is characterized by the horns, and I'm biased in the other way. This is like one of the first genres that I, discovered, quote unquote, or was exposed to as a teen. So I always really responded to the horns, and I thought that was a unique element. So especially in like third wave, which combined kind of punk with the ska elements, and then so that is what I really liked about it. And then going back, I like things like the Specials and earlier ska as well, but I didn't really know the Madness too much, and they kind of typify what two-tone ska was. I appreciate them. I didn't love it, but it's got all the hallmarks of ska. I appreciate the fact that it was a lot of it was instrumental, which I think is kind of different than a lot of the albums that we listen to. It's made to dance, just like I said in the Bob Marley bio, and that was also an appeal for me early on. And then, like you said too, Matt, I like the fact that they're kind of in on the, not the joke per se, but they're having fun with it, and that comes through in the lyrics and almost in the way that the songs are structured and organized. The music sounds fun, for lack of a better description. I mean, if you're making a ska version of Swan Lake, you have to be like not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah, Tchaikovsky, right?
Yeah. So it's I mean, so I don't fault you for feeling the way you do. I think in some ways, I don't know, John, you chime in here with your thoughts too as well. Maybe we can expand on that. But
so Madness is part of a wave of groups, the second wave, and I think that's important to bet. And they sound very different than the other wave, like the Selector, the Specials, the Body Snatchers, bands like that. The English Beat, right? They are much more tied to reggae, and they're also multiracial. So they have a much more Jamaican feel. That's why it's going to be interesting, Matt, when you hear the Specials, because
I think
we're
that's
calling
what I like
this two-tone, and Madness is in many ways just as much a new wave. I always said Madness is the ska Kinks, because they tell slice of life British stories, and they become less and less ska to the point where later they're not even really a ska band. When they're releasing like Our House and Wings of a Dove, which is probably a song without real. If you've ever seen 10 Things I Hate About You, Wings of a Dove is in that, in a montage. And House of Fun they do later, that's like a pop song, and Baggy Trousers. These are all like more like almost like kink songs, like new wave kink songs. And I think there's a kindred spirit with the Davies brothers and the guys in Madness. They're like working class dudes who celebrate Englishness. This album by far is the most ska I'm not going to say they abandoned ska later, but they're largely gone from it. This album, I think of half of it is ska. Like One Step Beyond is a Prince Buster song. And it's like classic ska. I don't know who can listen to that song and not. I struggle to feel how. I think the other thing, Matt, and I'm not blaming you for this, but I think one of the things that happens is there's an elitism. Like, I think ska has been hurt by being branded as one of the genres that's not cool. And it's funny because it doesn't carry that stigma in Great Britain. And I mean, Madness had tons of number one hits in Great Britain. They're a big, big freaking deal that can still tour. But the ska wave never really hit in America. Even when third wave ska was the only time it resonated here, whereas it resonated a ton across the world, other places. And even when it resonated here, it was considered a gimmick. And the thing that you would always hear about with ska was that it was a gimmick from serious music people, right? Like, it was not a serious genre. And in some ways, it's similar to like how they used to treat hip hop or how they treated pop. And And the funny thing about genres treated that way is they have a way of transcending. And they actually have a way of maintaining an energy, I think, that other stuff starts to age, and the only people that realize it aged are the people still telling you it's the good shit, right? And that's like, there's my like man of the people tape thing of ska. I love second wave ska because it's working class people being in a very tumultuous time in Britain, and instead of making punk rock or new wave, they decide to just make happier music while also, you know, like, I shouldn't say happy because the Specials certainly didn't write happy lyrics. But it's just, I have always appreciated the sense of fun that Madness brings. Of the four big second wave bands, they're probably my least favorite of the four, but there's something undeniably fun about this album. I want to also talk, In the Middle of the Night, Bed and Breakfast Man, and Razorblade Alley is an awesome 3-set song sequence, and they're not really ska at all. They're way, and you guys haven't mentioned the keyboards in Madness, which are all over this album, and the keyboards are every bit as prominent as the horns in this album, quite a bit. And that's where I think from 8, 9, and 10 they basically become kind of a pop band. And I don't know, Matt, if some of the ska elements had worn you out, but I'm actually surprised you didn't respond more to those songs, because they're more traditional songs that sound, like I said before, they sound like Britpop at times. Madness,
or like
they really
an Elvis
do.
Costello.
Well, Elvis Costello
yeah.
produced the Specials' first album, so I mean,
yeah.
he was knee deep in some of the same genres. Not to mention, you know, the Specials toured with the Clash, you know, so there's a lot of overlap with stuff like that. Yeah, and so like this does, much like Josh, I stumbled at this at a time in my life where I listen to serious music, right? And I listen to stuff, but then you can't always be in that genre, for me at least. And I needed stuff that was more visceral. And you know, I listened to stuff that was visceral angry. I listened to stuff that was visceral sad. And ska was what I listened to as a happiness pill. You know, it really was. It just makes me happy. There's something sonically that just appeals to me. I love the horns. I love the sort of the madcap nature of it. So I really like this album, and it's not going to be for everyone. If I find more than any other genre, like if you don't like ska, there isn't going to be anybody who's going to change your mind on it, because you have an idea of what it is. Even more so than old people who hate hip hop, I feel like. And I feel like, Matt, this might be where like your musical influences are more traditional, I would say. Like traditional lanes, and like there's just certain things like R&B and ska stuff that just never was able to get in. And one of the things that I wonder over time is if some of these things are going to start to burrow in, or if it's just the mold is cast, you know? So, and I'm going to go through that same thing too, because electronic music is going to be a challenge for me. But it's a challenge I'm openly like excited to go into, because I know that's a genre that I've traditionally said it does not resonate with me, and I know it's going to be coming fast and furious in the 80s and 90s, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because there is, I go into this going like, all right, I'm going to be open-minded, and as soon as right off the horns come in, I'm like, ugh, and it's hard, it can be hard for me to break that mold. I think certain elements of hip hop, I definitely, there's elements of hip hop that I like quite a bit, actually. So I don't think I'm going to have as much of an issue there. I just, you know, maybe with some of the R&B in the 90s. But I think part of it, as Josh, you were kind of describing how you got into it, I'd never heard of ska as a teenager, as in high school and stuff. I didn't know what it was. I never heard any of these bands. I didn't know what the genre was. And then I went to college, and I think I've told you guys this, like one of the first shows that was at school that year. This is like 96, 97. And they had De La Soul, Fishbone, and the Mighty Mighty Bosstones play.
Yeah, they're definitively
that's a good
ska
show.
Bosstones.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people.
I'd like to see that, yeah.
And there were a lot of people that were like, "Oh my God, what a great show!" I was like, "Yeah, it was okay." But there was a couple of guys that I had just met, and they were totally in, especially to the ska stuff. And they were like telling me all about it, and they get there and they're going nuts and dancing, and they see a bunch of other people doing the same thing, and I'm going, I am missing something here. Like this was like I felt like I was kind of coming to a different country and seeing this different culture, you know. And I was going, I don't know if I belong here. Like it's okay. Like how do I feel about this?
I get that though. Because I do feel if you discover it when you're a teenager, it does hit different, and you'll always have a soft spot for it.
It was the thing about it now. It was a confusing experience for me, and I go like I just from that moment on, it was just never like I never was like, oh my god, I love this. So I think that's part of it. It was just a weird time that it was introduced to me. But it's a good point, John. I mean, like I don't know. I try to be open-minded, but and I did say like I couldn't remember the names of the songs. That's one of the other things I did this week. I didn't take notes, write stuff down, so I'm not as specific with some of the songs. But I did note that there were some songs on here that were less ska, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is better. And it was probably, and I do remember it being in the middle of the record, so it's probably some of those songs as well. My Girl, for some reason, stuck out a little bit more. And I mean, that's still a little bit of ska there too, but there was a cool piano part that I just remembered for some reason that I liked. So,
well, I don't think of My Girl as ska. It has horns in it, but like I think a big thing I want to mention is like the ska sound is that more like pick it up sound like that's in there a little bit, whereas the horns are detached from it. If that makes sense. You get what I'm saying? So like there can be songs with I guess I'm going to be the person who's, if there's anybody listening who's like, God damn it, like, describe it right. Like horns don't necessarily mean ska.
No.
It's more of that like
it's on the upbeat.
Upbeat, exactly. Is more of
yeah, it's all the horns on the upbeat, and it's fast. It's fast paced.
It's right? If you play it fast as opposed to play it slow. It's kind of like the upbeat on it. Yeah, and there are songs.
If you slow it down, it's more reggae. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and
I like that better.
Horns. Yeah.
I like that better.
Yeah, and remove the horns is the other big thing. Yeah, they go away. And you have stuff, by the way, like the song Madness and One Step Beyond. There's a guy named Prince Buster who's sort of the bridge from first gen ska, which was a Jamaican phenomenon, to like Prince Buster is where like the Jamaican immigrants, right? They brought the sound and the openness to it, and like Prince Buster was like the first like British guy, you know what I mean, who kind of took the sound a little bit and like brought it. He's well, I shouldn't say that. He's not a white guy. he's a Jamaican guy, but he kind of brought the sound to Britain, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? So like, and then like what happened was like the working class white folks kind of gravitated to it. And a lot of the songs they were playing were Prince Buster songs. You would think it would be like Desmond Decker and people, but it wasn't. It was more like it was Prince Buster was the guy. So that's a very short description of a very big thing. But yeah, I get it, Matt. I'm never going to rag on you for not liking it because I mean, it's there. And, Josh and I also have a sentimental, we have a predilection to the sound and also a sentimental connection to it that it's just a seminal part of things. So I think it's going to be interesting because we don't cover a lot of ska. I think the only other ones we have the whole run, I mean, I guess if you count like No Doubt as ska, which they're more like they're like Madness in that they're like a new wave band, but they don't really have I get they get lumped in with ska, but like they're just as influenced by like Talk and like people like that, new wave as they are. And we'll do the specials next week, and they are I mean, I'm not gonna say you're gonna like it, Matt, but they are a different vibe. I'll give you a heads up.
We're doing the specials next week.
The next Cold Listen Hot Take.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because 79 and 80 is basically when two-tone hit. So we'll do those. I think we do the English beat at the beginning of the 80s. So you'll get, and they all come at it from different angles. I thought that Madness would either be the one you hated the most or the one you liked the most, depending on how you felt about the middle songs. So yeah, so now we know. But I do want to describe that there's ties to like the type of English songwriting that and it comes even more distinctly later when you get songs like Our House and Wings of a Dove and stuff that are decidedly British slice of life songs.
Yeah, I was the same band because I was like, oh, I know them, the Our House guys, and I'm like, as soon as I saw the cover of the album, I'm going, oh, this is gonna be ska, right? Like because it's got the
it's the two-tone, it's the two-tone colors, right?
Yeah. So
maybe too like. Maybe you'll react differently to if you listen to some first gen like Jamaican ska. Like I wonder, maybe it feels more authentic, or I don't know, something like that.
Well, the specials will be a test because they sound a lot more like first gen than they sound like.
I'll try.
Madness sounds more like third gen, where specials sound more like first gen. So, yep. All right. Well, we will put a bow on that one right there.